Segue now into the Russian invasion of Ukraine. At least 6 people have been killed, 28 others injured following a missile strike in a suburb outside Kharkiv in northeast Ukraine. One of the dead was a 7-month pregnant woman. A war crime investigation has been opened in relation to the incident after allegations that Russia used a tactic aimed at killing civilians and rescue workers who arrived at the scene to help those caught in the first strike. Russia launched an offensive in the Kharkiv region last week, significantly adding to the pressure on Ukrainian forces as they await delayed deliveries of crucial weapons and ammunition from Western partners. The outcome in Ukraine is crucial for European security, for global security, and for American security, so says U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. And none of us would want to live in a world where dictators withdraw borders by force and launch wars of aggression to try to revive yesterday's empires. He was speaking on the situation in Ukraine at the Pentagon on Monday following a meeting on defensive operations across the front lines. Austin says Ukraine's forces are in a hard fight against Russian invaders who are obliterating Ukrainian villages, killing innocent civilians and bombarding civilian infrastructure, including dams and power plants.
The outcome in Ukraine is crucial for European security, for global security, and for American security. None of us would want to live in a world where dictators redraw borders by force and launch wars of aggression to try to revive yesterday's empires. So let me be clear. Ukraine's partners are united, and we're determined, and we're not going anywhere.
Ukrainian forces are fighting hard to hold against Russian advances across the front lines. Ukraine's reserves and stockpiles are being challenged as they defend against Russian offensive actions, which underscores the urgency of this coalition's work to sustain Ukraine. The President authorized a $1 billion military aid package for Ukraine following the passage of the National Security Supplemental. The second aid package was authorized a little over a week ago to send additional critical capabilities to Ukraine.
U.S. Ambassador to the UN, Robert Wood, says his country will remain committed to providing Ukraine what it needs until Russia ceases its attacks and withdraws. He was making the comment at a meeting of the UN Security Council in New York City. The Ukrainian ambassador, Sergei Kryslatseva, also called for more military aid, claiming Russia posed a threat to European and world security, peace and stability. It came during a session requested by Russia to discuss ongoing Western deliveries of weapons to Ukraine.
Rule of law and universal.
Until Russia ceases its attacks and withdraws from Ukraine, the United States will remain committed to providing Ukraine what it needs to defend itself in accordance with Article 51 of the UN Charter.
As we speak, Russian forces continue in their devastating attacks around Kharkiv. As UN experts visiting Ukraine in April discovered, this includes the use of ballistic missiles from North Korea. Russia's procurement of weapons from Pyongyang.
Let's begin the VOA's Anna Chernikova. She joins us from Kyiv. Anna, great to see you as always. U.S. has fully declared support for Ukraine. But I'm thinking, Anna, this support has to be backed with action. Am I right?
Good evening. Well, yes, partly at least. As we've heard already from a lot of U.S. officials that aid is coming, and as Secretary of Blinken, who was in Kyiv last week, he mentioned that basically the aid will be coming in a couple of days. So, of course, Ukrainian authorities do not give, a direct confirmation that what particular aid has arrived and what systems is already at the front line. But what we're hearing from the soldiers that, the situation is getting better, at least partially. We do have understanding that at this point, not not all of the package has arrived, at least what was promised. So more is coming. And of course, considering that at this point, Russian forces are in very active actions, assault actions, especially in the Kharkiv region and in the Donetsk region. Of course, Ukrainians need much more, and Ukrainians still lacking a lot. And this is what also announced and go public from the President Zelensky, and he particularly mentioning that Ukraine is especially lacking the capacities of air defense, and he is asking allies for more air defense systems.
The responsibility of Europe's security seems to rest solely on Ukraine's shoulders. U.S. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says the outcome of Ukraine is crucial for European security. I'm sure that for many Ukrainians, the concern here is about Ukrainian security. But are Ukrainian leaders considering that they hold the key to security in Europe?
Yes, and this is what actually Ukrainian officials are saying for the past couple of years since the beginning of Russian full-scale invasion, that basically Ukraine is not just protecting its own territory, but Ukraine is protecting Europe and the whole European region, because Russia and Russian forces will not stop in Ukraine if they succeed in Ukraine, and Ukraine is basically at this point holding them further from Eastern European and Central European countries. So, well, the risk is very high, not only for Ukraine, and allies seem to understand this, at least according to the official statements by the US officials and European officials. And basically every such joint meeting of the allies, which includes, if I'm not mistaken, 50 different countries, every time the statement is present that Ukraine is not just protecting itself, but Europe, and definitely Ukrainians and Ukrainian officials understand that as well, because, as I said, Russia will not stop if Russia succeeds.
You highlighted earlier, Anna, Ukraine is expecting weapons from the US, and right now soldiers are with very limited weapons on the front line. I know that the government is trying to encourage those soldiers and trying to keep hope alive amongst Ukrainians, and a lot of propaganda is going out there. The real situation on the ground, though, Anna, tell us what it's like for being on the front lines, what you've really heard, what you've seen that's going on in local Ukrainian news, not just state newspapers and state media, but what are the local authorities reporting regarding the situation on the front lines?
Yeah, so of course we're hearing from Ukrainian officials that the situation is stabilized. However, they do mention that the situation is tough. Ukrainian soldiers who I had a chance to talk to, and also to the civilians who are living in the Kharkiv region, particularly in the Kharkiv region, well, they do confirm that at this point situation is more or less stable, if we can say so. At least Russian forces do not go further. So Russian forces were stopped in the so-called gray zone, which is, well, more or less around 10 kilometers radius next to the Ukraine-Russia border. And it looks like Russian forces at this point are trying to create such a buffer zone on the territory of Ukraine, close to the border. So it looks like the city of Vovchansk is 50-50 under Ukrainian control. So we know that very heavy battles are happening right now, and every minute and every hour the situation is very different. But the city is well, unfortunately, the scenario is something like it was with Bakhmut and Avdiivka, because the city is getting destroyed and basically leveled to the ground. Most of the locals are evacuated, but still some remain in the city. Some people, this is what we're hearing also from and various sources. Some people are got under captivity of Russian forces. We cannot confirm this independently, but this is what we are hearing from local local journalists and local residents, and also Ukrainian intelligence. We understand that still, at this point, it doesn't look like Russian forces will be able to get closer to the city of. But again, we don't know. You know, it looks like it's not the end, so just the beginning, and it might be that Russian forces will strengthen their positions and bring more people to continue the assault and to enhance the assault. And in this point, and in this case, of course, the risk is getting higher again. We do see that the city of Kharkiv is still the main target. But for instance, locals who I talked to in the city of Izum, which is well, around 120 kilometers from the city of Kharkiv, they say that what they are hearing, that it looks like that Russian forces at this point will not be reaching that area because the city of Izum is located in between of the Kharkiv and Donetsk region. So we can say that situation is stabilized from what it was a week ago, for instance, but it's very, very shaky, and the area of Kharkiv region is under constant shelling, as well as the city of Kharkiv. A lot of civilians are dying, as you mentioned before. Over the weekend, it was a really bad shelling of the recreation area, and with a lot of casualties. So situation is hard, and Ukrainians are waiting very much for more support, more aid, especially air defense capacities to be strengthened.
Speaking of more support and aid, we've seen a lot of commitment from the United States. Is Ukraine enjoying as much commitment and support from other allies? We see that U.S. is definitely the leader in such statements, in such actions, and when U.S. demonstrates clear support and clear actions, European allies do the same, and not only European allies, but also Canada, also the UK. And I can say that after the recent meeting in Ramstein, we are hearing about particularly German initiative of air defense to create air defense to take let's say air defense leadership and bring more countries to ensure that Ukraine gets air defense systems and air defense capacities are getting wider. And a lot of countries have already joined. Today on Tuesday, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Germany, Annalena Baerbock, she's in Kyiv, and she arrived to Kyiv with a clear statement that Germany actually is quite successful in this initiative. It's already been collected almost 1 billion euros for this needs for Ukraine. And it looks like that a certain solution will be possible. So this is a very strong, of course, statement and very strong action from Germany and from the allies who join. So, there is hope that from Ukraine, in Ukraine, that European allies as well as US allies will be faster with such decisions and will be more, more precise with what Ukraine can get and how Ukraine can use what it gets. Anna, thank you so much for joining us on the program today. As always, stay safe.
Thank you.